At the first trial, the brothers admitted to the murders, but claiming they were sexually, emotionally, and physically abused by their parents. Prosecutors, on the other hand, presented the pair as greedy, wanting their parents' money and assets. A mistrial was declared. Then there was a second trial. What defense attorneys called evidence of abuse was excluded, and they were found guilty of first-degree murder. Now the big question, are the Menendez brothers going to get out of prison? Here now, entertainment attorney Tre Lovell. Tre, good morning to you. What factors in a case like this, as big as it is, high profile, will the judge be considering to set them up for possible parole?
Good morning, Marnie. A couple of things. So you have the resentencing, which really is an evaluation of their conduct post-conviction. What have they done since they were convicted in terms of being model inmates, being potentially good citizens, coming back into society? There's going to be a strong evaluation of the rehabilitation and whether or not they pose a threat. That's going to be the primary factors going into the resentencing. But we also need to remember there's a petition for writ of habeas corpus as well, which is a separate motion, which is going to consider the evidence that's been discovered that wasn't there at the time of the trial that could have been a difference. So they've really got two different tracks for a potential release. And
this letter's so damning, it wasn't included in the second trial, which led to their conviction ultimately. What does the letter specifically reveal that bolsters their case?
So the letter itself it was written by Eric to his cousin 8 months before the killing, before the murder. And it reflects, the fact that there was sexual abuse, his mental state at the time, which was somewhat traumatic, and corroborates their position that they had been sexually abused, were in fear of their life. And that's the reason for the murders. So that piece of evidence, as well as a declaration from one of the A Menudo stars who says he was also accosted and molested by Jose Menendez, those two pieces of evidence, kind of support the motion for the hearing.
So if the judge were to ultimately grant this, how soon could they be out?
So they're planning on having the resentencing hearing within the next 30 to 45 days. They're going to get with the court and determine when that date's going to be. If the judge signs off on it, that means they're going to be immediately eligible for parole. So at that point, they'll be on the calendar for a parole hearing. And if the parole board agrees, they'll be released at that point.
And what types of parameters, and this is a what if they were to be let go, would they be under, or would they just be normal citizens in society?
They would be under probation in the case that if they did anything, they'd be immediately, sent back to prison. Maybe some rehabilitation format or kind of the way you can get back into society. The district attorney has already set up a plan that kind of help reintegrate them into society and to help them, which is kind of standard. But they'll just be under probation, under, a general help plan, and then be allowed to go about their lives.
For their team, what's the biggest hindrance to their freedom? What may be the challenges they'll face as the judge considers all these factors?
Well, you've got to remember, the judge isn't going to rubber stamp this. First, there is some opposition. Kitty's brother, Mr. Anderson, has filed an opposition to it. He believes that they should be staying in prison. And surprisingly, some of the attorneys in the district attorney's office also are objecting, and Gascon suggested they may even be at the hearing. So there is going to be some opposition. And the judge, it's not going to be lost on the judge what happened. I mean, the parents were brutally murdered, with a shotgun shot over almost a dozen times. He's not going to lose sight of that. So there's not going to be a rubber stamp here. But it's a strong case. It's a compelling case. It's got a lot of societal push, a lot of good factors of mitigation that support it. But it's going to be a close call.
And we heard from them during the trial all those years ago. How much will the judge be wanting to hear from them now?
For the resentencing, they have an option to be at the hearing or not. A lot of it's just going to be on the paperwork, on the declarations, on the evidence. Their testimony will be really important at the parole board hearing. If the judge accepts the resentencing recommendation, and then they are eligible for parole, at the parole hearing, that's when they're going to have their opportunity to talk. That's going to be the real arbiter and deciding factor whether or not they're released.
Well, already a major turning point in this case, a lot of eyes on it. Tre, thank you. Happy weekend to you, sir.
Thank you very much.